You, how's it going, everyone? You are not done with me yet, but you are close. So we're almost to the end of day 3 of the offsite, and we have a awesome last session in store. We can test out my panel moderation skills. Many of you, obviously, that work here know Nava, know who we are. But just by quick way of introduction, we, Nava, are a public benefit corporation that's on a mission, has been on a mission for the last 7 years to make government services simple, effective, and accessible to all. We've been able to accomplish a lot over the last 7 years, and we're very much looking forward to continuing to double down on that mission in the decades to come. So, the title of this panel is called Progress Takes Work. Progress Takes Work is one of Nava's core values that celebrates the difficult, challenging, but ultimately purposeful and rewarding work that we get to do together as a company. And, at the offsite over the last couple of days, we've talked about how we as a company can support building public trust in public institutions, making service experiences better, making programs more effective, making agencies more adaptable to a world of continuous change. But we have our role to play in the ecosystem. We are not the only entity that is a part of this change. And one of the critical things that we as a company have talked about over the last couple of days, and that we is deeply important to our work, is having talented civil servants and having a strong partnership with government civil servants. That's critical to doing this work and being successful. So our panel today is going to give us some unique and I think valuable perspectives on exactly that. We're joined by folks from the Federal CIO's office at the White House, from the Federal Deposit Insurance Commission, and from Carnegie Mellon University. So they're all working on different aspects of this problem that we as a collective civic tech movement are advancing together. So let's kick it off with just some brief introductions. We can go down the line, starting with Noreen, and then we'll get into the questions.
Afternoon. There we go. Hi, everybody. I am Noreen Hecmanczuk. I am a digital experience advisor to Federal Chief Information Officer Clara Martirana. In my role, I would say I do my best to bring the people, policies, and processes together across government to best deliver a simple, seamless, and secure customer experience to the American people when they interact with our government. But it's my pleasure to be here with you today, Rohan and Gladys and Brian.
Hey, good afternoon. Yeah, it sounds like this is on. All right, great. My name is Brian Whittaker. I'm the Acting Chief Innovation Officer at FDIC. I believe I've met with a few of you Navanauts before in one of the Earth Tones ERGs, so great to see you. Big fan of Nava. I feel like they don't only talk the DEI talk, they also walk that walk, so excited to be here. In my day job, I'm focusing on innovating within FDIC, and in my previous roles, I led an organization called 18F. I think I see some 18F family here, and prior to that, I also had the opportunity to work with Noreen at the Centers of Excellence. So happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gladys Sriprasert, and I'm the Director of Public Policy and Management Programs at Carnegie Mellon University's Heinz College. Heinz is a very unique place. It's the only college in the world that co-locates both a School of Information Systems with a School of Public Policy under the same roof. So Noreen, you mentioned people, policy, process. We're at that intersection of people, policy, and technology. And so in my role, I oversee our master's programs in public policy and management data analytics, and also a part-time program in public management. I work with our faculty on curriculum, I work with admissions and pipeline initiatives and also with employers.
And thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I know that you're all extremely busy, so it's great that you could join us today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rohan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Nava. And we got our start out of the healthcare.gov tech surge effort and have been on a mission to make government services simple, effective, and accessible to all ever since. So with that, let's jump into it. And first question is for Noreen. You've been in government for now 30 years across 6 presidential administrations. That is a deep level of commitment to public service that's extremely inspiring. So thank you for your service. And, I noticed a quote that's on your LinkedIn that says, from Teddy Roosevelt, that says, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." And for me, thinking about the work we do with Nava, that quote resonated deeply because the type of change that we're all working towards in government services, it's about that. Sometimes we take big leaps, but much more often it's about small, consistent steps, being tenacious and persistent over long periods of time. And in thinking about that quote, for you, what qualities or strengths do you lean on that help you actually live that type of approach to the change we're trying to enable?
Right. Well, I think that 30 sounds like a very large number, and it is. But I will tell you that it's just truly been my honor to serve our country. And I think that I come from a family, like I'm sure many others, that believe the American people deserve the best when they interact with our government. So to whom much is given, much is expected. So in any agency that I have worked in, whether it's to, protect the safety of our food supply, whether it is to forge the frontier of science and innovation at the National Science Foundation, which Gladys and I have a lot of colleagues in common, I think how you find success in agencies is to meet the agency and the agency employees where they are before you can meet the customers where you need to meet them. Right? And so I get to know the agency, I get to know the agency people. And then what you can do is you can chart a path forward for the things that might be possible. Brian mentioned we worked together when he was at Centers of Excellence, and how we came together. I was working for Claire Martirana when she was CIO of OPM, the Office of Personnel Management. And what we realized when we were there is OPM has a retirement services call center. And the customers were having just a fractured, frustrating experience when they were interacting with the agency. And so we displayed a new way of working. We brought our technologists to the table with our business partners. They know the business better than really we ever will. So we need to work together. We carried out a 6-week sprint. And in that amount of time, for their 2.7 million customers, we realized that 2/3 of those customers could be served with a self-service tool. It sounds so easy, right? And so we brought the right folks together at the table. And what we launched was opm.gov/support. So I'd actually encourage you, and I hope you have connectivity in this room, but if you do, go to opm.gov/support and you can take a look at it. It's mobile optimized. It gets our customers answers faster. It gets them to the self-service tools they need. And then what it did is it inspired the OPM employees. They saw a new way of working. We reduced their burden. We got customers to a human at that call center, and then we allowed our customers just to go about their day. So that's what I try to do wherever I go.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible, and I think is deeply validating of the type of approach that works in practice. Brian, you've worked both inside and outside government, leading 18F, leading GSA's Centers of Excellence, working on important homeland security efforts in the private sector. What draws you to public service? And similar to the question I asked Noreen, what sort of strengths do you lean on in government to help you drive positive impact over the long term?
Sure, I'd say what really draws me to public service is two things, and I'll be upfront. Come from a family of public servants and a family with a lot of sisters. So my first sister is a nurse, the second's a police officer, and the third is also was once a teacher. Uh, my dad was in the Air Force, and my mom taught, so it was just a matter of time before I landed in public service. You know, I started my career in industry, but I found myself spending my lunch hours or maybe even my weekends volunteering, whether it was at a middle school with a nonprofit. Got my MBA, had the opportunity to consult for GSA. GSA had an opening and I made it in, right? So that's my opportunity to actually make some change at scale. You know, from day one, I always had the vision of I want to do government-wide work, not just GSA work. And I was fortunate enough that the universe had the same idea for me, right? So working with Noreen, I got to, I had the opportunity to work at USDA, OPM, HUD, a variety of other agencies, and just so fortunate to have met so many great public servants and actually get more familiar and intimate with how our government serves the American people, not only at a federal level, but understand how important it is at a state and local level as well. But one thing that I would say in terms of producing results in those different spaces, I'm a relationship person at my core. You probably already heard me talk about my 18F family. That's how I roll. I'm a hugger. I customize my communication to connect with people. And I think it's really helpful in the government space. More often than not, the first thought or top of mind topic that comes to federal employees' mind is compliance or an audit or the IG. And I think if there was more collaboration and more getting to know people and how they do their role and appreciation of expertise, a lot of those concerns go away because you're working together, you're coordinating, you understand who needs to be at the table. So that's really how I've maneuvered in my career in hopes of getting the right people in the room to make progress and move forward.
Hello, check. Yep. That's so interesting. And you mentioned being a relationship person and having the right people in the room. Can you say a little bit more about what you mean by that? What do you mean by right people in the room?
Sure. I mean, specifically for this audience, you know, when it comes to digital work, when it comes to tech, I could tell a story about procuring a voice of the customer tool at USDA. We didn't have the appropriate technical evaluation panel, and we ended up picking a tool that was probably at the lowest point of the Gartner Magic Quadrant, just because this tool had been used in another part of USDA. So after that happened, imagine all the questions, all the concerns, the side eyes that were given. But if we had the person from that organization talk about their experience using that tool, if we didn't just throw over requirements to the acquisition team and had more in-depth conversations about strategy from the very beginning and what we wanted to achieve, I think we probably would have landed a little bit higher in that magic quadrant and not have such a black eye or a side eye given to us, right? So I'd say just respecting that expertise, building that matrix team from the very beginning, so people don't have to assume and infer what you mean. They actually know what it is and know what the requirements are and how it's supposed to land and serve people, I think is critical to success.
And the point you make about the kind of interdisciplinary collaboration is so critical. And we talk a lot at Nava about how do we support the next generation of technology leaders. Gladys, one question I wanted to ask you is, you know, can you tell us a little bit, I guess, first of all, about how does your work contribute to the future of the public sector workforce, especially as we think over the next 10 years. And, you know, we're looking at a huge wave of retirements across the federal government's technology workforce. What is your vision as somebody who's running a program building pipelines of talent and career pathways for talented civil servants? What's your vision for the future of that field and this workforce?
Sure, and I'll say that certainly I oversee our master's programs, but it is a team effort of faculty and staff and students and their commitment to want to make a difference in our society and attend a master's program in public policy. So a portion of that larger effort. And before I get to the vision, I just want to talk about what we're doing in our master's programs. Specifically, I mentioned how we're at this intersection of policy and technology, having co-locating these two oftentimes separate and siloed fields. And that has provided us this very unique advantage to draw in interdisciplinary faculty with core backgrounds in machine learning, artificial intelligence, statistics, economics, engineering, operations research, leadership. Very atypical for a public policy school. But this really has been part of our foundation since the late 60s, when our college was founded by an engineer, an operations engineer, to tackle complex societal issues through a different lens, one that was honed in on evidence, one that was leveraging technology and analytics to make an impact. And in my position as a graduate of the program, but also as someone who has seen this program grow over the last 14 years, I've witnessed that technical skills are important. Knowledge of quantitative analysis is important to inform policy, but also just as important are the soft skills. As you mentioned, Brian, being able to work in interdisciplinary teams, being able to have that human connection, that's really what drives change, right? That's really when people are motivated, it's the soft skills. And that has also been part of our curriculum. And so from the founding of the late 60s, we have really pioneered a new type of policy education honed in on these skills to tackle these complex societal issues. And about 10 years ago, I was part of a committee that launched the data analytics track. And that really just leveraged internal assets that we already had. We already had a number of classes around machine learning and AI as they related to public policy. And so we launched a new track nearly 10 years ago in data analytics. I thought, oh my goodness, we're going to attract all of these STEM students to come and address all these complex policy issues. Well, that didn't happen. Instead, what we attracted were social science students, political science students like myself, econ students, who wanted to learn about technology and the impact that it was having in our society. And with that, I realized that these silos that we see in our minds of technologists versus policy people, they really don't exist, because you can tech up somebody with a poli-sci background, and you can also provide the infrastructure and the complexities of working in policy for someone with a technical background, right? And that has been really interesting to see this program grow over the years. Now it has STEM designation, but I will say we have a ways to go as far as our student diversity. And so we decided to then create pipelines of opportunities for historically underrepresented students to better understand the career pathways of public interest technology. One, most folks don't even know what do you do with a policy degree, right? Two, what is public interest tech? So really it's starting before students arrive to a master's program to raise that visibility, to say, hey, do you want to make a difference or not in your society? Consider working for government. Consider going into a public policy degree. And don't forget about technology, because it is impacting every facet of our lives. And if you are historically underrepresented, you may be even more impacted by having lack of access to broadband or digital literacy. So it really is an imperative that we address education, not only at the master's level, but to create that pipeline that represents our society. And another aspect is, well, how do we work with government to skill up the workforce, right? Because not everyone has the time or money, frankly, to give up 2 years to go earn a master's degree. And so this month, actually, we just launched a certificate in public interest technology for government workers. Our hope is to reach a much wider scope of individuals who are not just located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It is an online certification in public interest tech that y'all actually in this room, if you're interested, could complete over the course of 6 months. There will be some in-person touch points, but it's really building the skills around database management, also digital innovation and AI and leadership, right? To demystify that black box of artificial intelligence. And so we're looking at it as a pipeline of training, master students certainly, but then creating that strong pipeline that is representative of our society, and also reaching out to the existing government workers who are already in the trenches doing the work.
That's incredibly inspiring, and I'm so thankful that exists and that you're doing that work and leading it. I want to pull on that thread further. You raised, the policy vertical, the technical. These are not sort of separate things. There's a feedback loop. It's maybe a little bit more porous or fluid. If I can open it up to everybody here to comment on this, how do you think, and in your experience as leaders, what role do you think technologists play in contributing to public trust in public institutions? We live in a world now where policy value is delivered through technology. Yes, we still have some paper-based forms out there. Generally speaking, policy value is delivered through technology. So it puts technologists in a position to affect public trust in civic institutions. And maybe if I could get your thoughts on how technologists can shape public trust intentionally, and if you have any stories or examples from your experience where you've seen it, that would be very interesting to hear about.
So in the Office of the Federal CIO, we believe that truly not only CIOs, but technologists all across agencies, they truly need a seat at the table, and more importantly, they need a voice at the table, right? So we're trying to get technologists included in meetings that happen upstream, because technology supports mission delivery. So if agency employees who don't necessarily have that technology background are really plugging ahead with a procurement or an acquisition, and the technologist is missing, that's a missed opportunity, I think, to deliver a product or a service that will delight our customers. So we're trying to get technologists in the room earlier, and often we want folks in the C-suite. They also have a huge responsibility to protect the safety, security of the systems that we manage on behalf of the American people. And so technologists are hugely important to that. I think to your point of, how do we build trust? We need to start delivering products and services that meet today's needs. And with every product and service we deliver, more and more of Gladys's students will say, oh my gosh, did you see this? Like, look what the government just launched. Oh, wow, Gladys said I should go think about working with Brian, right? And so we want that to happen. And so a quick story that I have for you that I just was exposed to about 2 weeks ago in a demo day that we did for congressional staff. A shout out to the Social Security Administration. They have just launched an online application for people who get married and want to change their name due to marriage, right? That should be really easy to do in the year 2022. How are we going to get Gladys's people to come to us, right? If that's still a hard thing to do. And so the people of SSA, I learned there are 2 million people about that get married a year, and about 1.3 million want to change their name. And so they've launched this online application. You can go to ssa.gov/SS number if you want to take a look at it. There's a decision support tool that will help lead you very easily in plain language through the process. And right now, within 4 states, soon to be 5, I think you'll hear that soon, and then over time, but in 4 states, you can change your name. and get and do that process totally online. So those are the things, Rohan, that I think have to happen. And then to Gladys's point about soft skills. So I'm going to do a shout out to all of the soft skill people in colleges and universities. I was a political science major at another Pennsylvania school, Penn State University. So we are, if anyone is out there. So I was a liberal arts major, and I've been in communications and congressional affairs positions. And I think you also need people like me in the room listening to help tell the stories. And that's what the government does not necessarily do to the best of our ability. So I would love, like anyone listening, anyone here today, that if you love taking the technology, putting it in plain language and on a one-pager, that's all we need. Just like key one-pagers, problem, solution, statistics, a quote from a user in their own words. And then you show that to members of Congress. They say, wow, and how many people in my state does that impact? And, oh, wow, that's so interesting because, you know, we're thinking about your next budget cycle, right? And we say, great, because look, if you imagine what we can do with very little over a 6-week period, you know, imagine if you invested us more fully, how much more we could do for your constituents. I would also say lowering burden. I'm big about burden and paper. It's just hard. All of this is hard. The world has moved on from paper, but in the federal government, we kind of haven't gotten there yet. And we're chipping away at it, and we are making progress. Think about, we have 535 congressional offices representing the constituents of our country, which are the American people, our customers. And so every time the 330 million people that live in this country have a tough experience with a government agency, they write an email, they call the office, they send a letter. And then what you have on the other end of those 535 offices are constituent caseworkers, district directors, legislative correspondents, taking up a huge amount of their time contacting the agency's legislative affairs offices and communications offices to answer, you know, and close that loop. So with every product and service we launch, we will eliminate that burden and allow everybody to get onto the higher value work of serving our country. So I hope that resonated because, you know, we just need these people listening, all of you, everyone listening, you know, change is possible. We live truly in the best country, I think, in the world. You know, we have opportunities and mission second to none. But what we need to inspire people is that underlying technology. It's hard to work in the government sometimes, but progress takes work and change is possible.
It's, you can clap. That's incredibly heartening. Brian and Gladys, what do you think? What role can technologists play in contributing to some public institutions?
Sure. So I think we have two recent examples on the tech front of tech and policy coming together to make some positive change. I don't know if you all have seen the apply for a passport online, I guess, demo or proof of concept that was circulating, right? Public servants could apply and try this out first. That was an exciting one. And then I think we also just recently experienced the COVID test, right, through the Postal Service, right? That was a really nice spin up. They responded to the moment. When I was at CFPB, I do know that they were working on a new regulation to capture data around loans being provided to small businesses. And they made sure to have technologists at the table as that regulation was being formed so that the tech could appropriately scale to the amount of demand and information that was coming forth. So that was a great example. Kudos to them on that. But yeah, I think longer term, we've got to get those technologists, those designers, maybe even those futurists, if you want to call them that, at the table of policy, just to make sure, like, okay, how are we not just responding to today's moment, but what are the potential problems that we could face in the future? Where is technology going? So that this isn't something that we need to firefight 2 to 3 years out, because here's what's coming and what's going to be available.
Noreen, I was one of those people that called the state's agencies as a legislative aide in Texas. I was that burden at one point. Well, I This is a really, I think, good question because in my world, again, I don't necessarily see it so black and white that you have technologists and then you have policy people. I think that there is this blend and this more and more we're getting individuals who are becoming literate in both spaces. But I do think what is really critical in order to gain public trust is having that human connection and talking to the individuals most impacted by the policies in order to inform the best, delivery system. Like I'll see it sometimes in our student projects. Students are super excited to leverage their shiny new skills and they'll build this machine model for a little nonprofit organization working on Excel, right? That's not going to help anyone. So I think it's really, really important to find the source of the issues, the root of an issue. I saw that on your value statement there, Rohan, with Nava, getting to the root of what's causing a problem. And oftentimes just talking to the humans impacted by that. And recently, we had an alum come speak at Heinz. And she was the National Digital Director for the Office of the President in Mexico. And she was instrumental in digitizing a large number of their services, both at the local government level, state and federal level on a platform called gov.mix. And she was also very instrumental in doubling broadband access in Mexico. And when she was talking about how they about creating this platform, she showed pictures of people standing in line, actually no people, just shoes in line, waiting to get a copy of a birth certificate because it was so corrupt that people had to come back, be turned away, come back again, and it became a very, very hard system. And then she was able to assemble these interdisciplinary teams, right? She said she had designers, she had technologists, she had an understanding of what was happening on the ground. And then she was able to come up with this user-friendly platform that addressed these issues. And I think that's such a amazing success story because one thing that she said was, I'm not alone here. It takes an entire team of people with different perspectives to get to the best solutions, but you start with the person that's most impacted, or for in that example, the shoes impacted waiting in line.
That's so interesting. Talking about the external impact of these decisions. There's a lot of attention right now on user-facing services, a focus on customer experience. There was a recent executive on that. It's pretty intuitive to understand how these services that are delivered to the public, why those are important. They're very tangible. In many cases, you can, pull it up in a web browser. You can walk into an office. It's very physical. Could I get your thoughts on maybe the less visible aspects? So not necessarily the user-facing services that are produced by an agency, but within the agency itself, these are complex organizations, typically thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people working together. As you think about the importance of something like employee experience or the infrastructure that's within these agencies that either supports this type of work and building trust or hinders that type of work, what do you think is important sort of within these agencies when it comes to enabling the type of work that you're trying to sort of see shipped out of these agencies?
I think I'll take it. Yeah. Okay. So, employee engagement has been part of my career journey. we have to start with communicating with our workforce. And sometimes employees in government hear about something for the first time through congressional testimony or a news article. And so what I found a story, I spent some time over on our VA team right before they were getting ready to launch va.gov. And this was a few years ago. And so my job was to really connect internally at the Department of Veterans Affairs with the Congressional Public Affairs and then the 3 administrations across the VA to kind of let them know, hey, this is what we're getting ready to launch. It's the new digital front door of the Department of Veterans Affairs, right? You're going to welcome veterans with a personalized experience. You're going to let them see what they have in flight and then get them on their way. And so if I could have spent all of my time just having meeting after meeting and, lunch and learn sessions across the Department of Veterans Affairs, I think that would have been an unbelievably beneficial use of my time, right? Because these are really great, dedicated people that have been waiting for all of you to come. That's the truth. And so I went all across the VA, and then VA does every year they go up to Capitol Hill, and they bring the entire VA and all of the policies and programs and people to kind of have a little, town hall so that congressional members and staff can come and see what they're working on. So I walked in the town hall, around the town hall, just learning about the VA. We had our table about va.gov. And then I was meeting the other VA employees at their tables, and I was saying, hey, we're right over here. We're helping all of you launch your new digital front door. I can't tell you how inspired they were to hear about what we were helping to support for their agency. And they really had tears in their eyes, some of these folks. And I don't want to say too much more about it because I will have tears in my eyes, right? This work is inspiring to people. They are, much of what you'll see when you come to federal agencies, they're really great people. They've inherited a lot of the challenges, right? So they get hired and then, they're given a piece of equipment or some tools and technology, and they kind of have to go over the river and through the woods to do just basic tasks. And so again, with every team we can deploy to agencies, with every product and service we can launch, technologists are serving as inspiration in partnering with the business to deliver on that agency's mission.
I would add on, I recently joined FDIC and I'm in an acting position as the Chief Innovation Officer, and I'll be accountable for standing up a new office. And through that role, it's had me reflect on what leadership traits I potentially need to shed and which ones I need to demonstrate. And I think, a critical opportunity to the question you asked is like, how does this show up in regards to the employee experience? And I think it's maybe a new model of leadership, one in which there's more collaboration on display, more respect of, different organizations and what they bring to the table, and not only just demonstrating that at the leadership level, but throughout the management ranks, in hopes of the employees following suit and doing the same and having that appreciation of other expertise. And then, to that point, how's the saying go? Like, whatever you measure is actually what's going to happen. So how do we bake that into some of our performance goals? Like, what cross-agency, cross-divisional projects are you leading? Have you participated in? Have you worked on? Because the more that we have these silos, I think the less of a positive employee experience will be. They may be in the dark about different projects and things that are underway, and probably will result in fewer positive outcomes for the citizen.
And we spent time here at Nava talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a company, we have long-term goals around this. Can you all talk a little bit about, in your leadership position, your teams, or whether it's the agencies you're at or the programs that you're running, thinking about talent pipelines, what do you think what role does that play in your institutions and on your teams?
Sure, I can address that. So it plays a critical role. In institutions of higher education, it's attract talent and students that are diverse, that have been historically underrepresented. And that takes effort and outreach. But also once students arrive to campus, we also need to create a climate that is inclusive and where students feel that they can flourish and they feel that they belong, right? And so within our college, we look to multiple things. One is creating opportunities for students to engage and have fun outside the classroom, working with our faculty on inclusive teaching strategies and looking at our content. We just hired a new director of diversity and equity and inclusion who would be spearheading a number of events to create not only what we're, bringing in the students, but cultivating that climate where folks really, really belong. And especially for future public servants, that's critical. I also sit on the board of directors for a program called the Public Policy and International Affairs Program. And it is a fellowship that's been around for 45 years with the mission of increasing diversity in master's program in public policy and international affairs through academic preparation. And so at Carnegie Mellon, we run one of these 7-week programs where we provide the skills that would make students competitive for graduate school. And then about 5 years ago, we launched a data analytics component to this fellowship program. Again, to really elevate and amplify and raise the visibility of technology for students. And so those are just some of the efforts that we're doing at Heinz to be proactive, to get students in the door, but then again, also creating a climate where people feel that they belong. And I think that goes into the workforce as well, right?
I would say, while it isn't necessarily called out formally in my performance goals, something I'm doing on my own time, building on that relationship, driver that's inside of me. I'm trying to take that to the next level and sort of build community. So one of the things I'm working on is pulling together people that are interested in DEI in the civic tech space, whether they're in nonprofit, state or local, federal, industry, right? Because I feel like we're all moving towards the same direction, that race for talent is real. And, I think we can provide better supports to like address the inclusion aspects that Gladys mentioned, right? It's one thing to attract that talent, but it's another thing to keep it. So what sort of support structures can we put in place as people come into public service, or they start at a digital services company, or they start at a nonprofit, and maybe they're the only one in the room. Maybe once a month, there's a meeting they can go to where that isn't always the case. So yeah, that's how I'm sort of showing up and trying to tackle that problem.
And I'll just say real quick, I think for recruitment, as we think about inspiring people to join us through tech talent to government, it's really about having folks, Gladys, you had mentioned shoes, right? Like no one here has walked in each other's shoes. Like we all have different unique perspectives and journeys. So we believe in recruiting folks from all over our country so that we can best deliver for all people in our country, right? And so the SSA example, when you think about that online experience, walking into an office, an SSA office in New York City, I don't know how many there are, but I would imagine there are many, right? But if you're in Montana, you may be driving 200 miles to reach an SSA office. And so I think having technologists from all over our country come to serve will enable us to deliver the strongest and best government that we can.
There's so many interesting threads to pull on here. I wish we had like another 2-3 hours. How long did you say? So we're gonna open it up to audience questions in just a moment, but I'm gonna ask you a final question from me. As you think about the next 10 public service, what keeps you up at night?
Take this real quick. You can stay up at night also because you're dreaming. I would just say that. So mine is a dream. Mine is a dream. So 2 things. I think for me, I think a lot about how do we, as quickly as possible, assess where agencies are on their IT modernization journeys, make sure they have the foundational investments in cybersecurity and zero trust. That's the firm foundation, so that we can kind of unlock the potential for IT modernization, improving public-facing digital services, and then securing and unlocking and protecting and using the data that we have to deliver the best for the American people. So that's number one. Number two is really the talent, right? We need the people to be inspired to want to join us on this journey. And so I will stop there, but I would just say, we are the people, you and me, anyone listening. And I think we have plenty, again, the mission, and we have, I should have said earlier, an aggressive, really, administration list of priorities. The president's executive order on customer experience. We have the president's executive order on cybersecurity. We have a zero trust strategy that's being implemented across the government. So now that was almost the easy part. It wasn't easy, but it was almost the easier part. Well, now we have to operationalize all of those things. And so we truly need people to come.
I'll pull on that thread of a dream. I would say the dream that keeps me up at night, or the dream that I'm constantly thinking about, is one where communities of color, people from communities of color and women are at the table for creation of policy, right? The Partnership for Public Service put out a report, I think in August of 2021, that stated only 23% of the senior executive service are people of color. How can we move the needle on that? I think that's a big fear for me. That number is a big fear for me. Moving that number, moving that needle is a dream that I have. And then I'd say, yeah, showing up and having some representation within government that encourages people of color to select a career in public services. It's another dream of mine.
Say that, thinking about the fears in public service, I think more about the issues and how complex they are and how difficult and big they are to tackle, and how sometimes they can seem so overwhelming. When I was last here in DC, the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, and I was with a group of undergraduate students who were crying and huddled together, aspiring, public servants. And I remember just thinking and saying to them that we need you. We need you to keep going. We need you to keep fighting, even against big odds, right? Because these are complex issues. There's no silver bullet to immigration. There's no silver bullet to gun violence. And these are all personal issues to many of us. And so I would say that that's the complexity of the issues are my fear at times, but then what helps me sleep is the next generation, the individuals who are doing the work, the people who are the advocates, the students, everyone who plays a role, you in this room, helping government run better, everyone plays a role, and that's what helps me sleep when we think about tackling these big things, because they all start with one small step.
So we have some great audience questions pulling further on some of these threads. I wish we had the time to just be able to go start with with one of the questions that came in virtually, and then if you're here in the room, Cyrus is going to be coming around with the mic. There he is. So while we take this first question, just put up your hand if you'd like to ask a question here, and Cyrus will get the mic to you. So there was a question that came in, which is, folks often get questions about making a career shift into this space. And that can be challenging sometimes. Not, maybe you don't have government experience, or maybe you don't know what to expect, or maybe there's jobs that require certain things, direct experience, that maybe you just don't get that far in the interview process. I'm curious, what advice do you have for folks that are interested or looking to make a career shift in this direction? Thoughts?
Can maybe take a stab at that. Well, I think it comes down to having critical skills that are transferable, skills that really hone in on building your quantitative evidence-based skills, skills that will build your technical expertise, your understanding of analytics, and the soft skills, because those are skills that will make you competitive across sectors. And I have seen our alumni work. Typically, it's a third in government, a third in nonprofit, and a third in private sector, but they don't stay typically in their sector. They navigate in and out of sectors. So I think you look for the common thread, the skills that you need that really cut across all of this. And I think it's really honed in on evidence, analytics and technology, communication and implementation.
I'd quickly add LinkedIn, virtual coffees, and informational interviews. That's my bread and butter.
I'd add on to that, usds.gov/apply. So we have so many great, sorry about all of my URL. I'm like cutting right to the point.
Oh, do it. We're here.
Yes. And so, but we have phenomenal talent management people all across the government. So the United States Digital Service, we have the United States Digital Corps that was just stood up not long ago. We have the Presidential Innovation Fellows Program. Right, we have USA Jobs, which a lot of jobs where we still need people who understand COBOL, right? And it can help us get off of mainframes into the cloud, right? So we have jobs for every person at every stage of their career. Even if you're switching careers and you want to just kind of give it a go, the Tech Talent Project is another great resource, right? And so there are people out there. I would offer up LinkedIn to me, and I am happy if you have a question and you want to know who you could talk to, we're happy to put, and I think Brian, yes, Gladys, yes, are you yes? Okay, we're all a yes, so link into us and we will all try our best to get you where you need to be.
Got it. Do we have an in-person question? We have plenty virtual.
I have a question. Hi, my name is Genevieve. I'm a director of design for research and development here at Nava. And I think you all, along with folks here at Nava, have seen kind of the wave over the last 10 years where we saw lots of innovation at the federal level. And then we saw that go into the states, in Medicare, and then increasingly into Medicaid, and of course UI with the pandemic. And I'm curious from your positions as this next wave of like TMF funding is coming and ARPA funding, are there more centers of gravity where you see this kind of innovation away from maybe more traditional IT and into true digital services and improved experiences?
I would just say that several weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, the TMF announced the application process for CX related investments. So that's still open, I think, through the end of September. So we are encouraging agencies to apply for those investments. But to answer your question, I think everything's on the table, right? We are looking at everything across the government to see how we can connect the people, the processes, the technology, the teams, share the stories with our key stakeholders like Congress, right, to get the support we need to improve those experiences. Do you want to add to that one?
I think you're spot on.
Okay, Brian says I'm spot on, so we're going to stop.
I'll add that there's a lot of opportunity for government to partner with universities, both within faculty talent and student talent. At Heinz, we have several research centers where we partner directly with the city of Pittsburgh, Metro 21 and Traffic 21, on how essentially acting as an R&D for the city, right? If a tech company is coming, trying to sell a city, fancy anything, they can run it through one of these centers. If they have an issue, they can have faculty from across the university work on an issue that the city is facing. So I think that there's a lot of innovation happening with collaborations between government and universities. So I'd say that also, I see it a lot in our own county, Allegheny County. We have an alum who leads the Health and Human Services Department, and she's been able to construct a data warehouse where she's taken data that has been traditionally siloed, crime data, school data, health data, and connected it. And as a result, there's a lot of research happening between the county and faculty at Carnegie Mellon to help support human services through the use of AI. And that would not have been possible, of course, without that database, but also there's this connection of collaboration of assets that I think is critical to drive innovation.
The one thing I'll add to that is the mechanism to facilitate some of that collaboration. I've mainly seen it from nonprofit to federal government or academia to federal government. And I think that's an interpersonal agreement, an IPA. Give that a little Google, and that's one way to get additional support and get things done.
Yeah, and I'll just add with students as well. We partner with governments, local, state, federal agencies to tackle issues that they're facing. We have a team of students with the guidance of a faculty member, do some real analysis and provide some concrete actions for organizations. Just briefly, we worked with an international organization that was tackling the illicit wildlife trafficking of rhinos and elephants in Africa. That's not something where, students are going to be delivered a clean Excel data sheet of all this black market business happening, right? So the students were able to provide them with something they didn't have the capacity to do, which was to mine news articles from around the world citing illicit wildlife trafficking, then geospatially mapping it to create a trend analysis so they can make a more informed decision about their interventions. And that was a collaboration between a team of students that actually was cross programs, information systems and public policy, and an organization for free for that organization. So there are multiple organizations and universities out there that have not only faculty talent, but also student talent.
Doing
Going back to Rohan.
Sorry, it's kind of bright.
Sorry.
Back. Yes.
Hello, is this work? Okay. Sorry.
Hi, guys. My name's Natalie. I'm actually a journalist. And Noreen, you mentioned thinking a lot about how to quickly be able to assess where agencies are, especially with zero trust in cyber, so that you can unlock more potential. I was wondering if you could talk more about that. Is that like a formal effort? And also, what's your sense of how agencies are doing as they try and balance these big cyber initiatives, as you mentioned, with these CX initiatives?
Right. Thanks, Natalie. I think what I was trying to talk about is when I go into agencies, and I have gone into agencies over my long career, what I have tried to do was assess where they are on their journey in regard to how I might help them. So in regard to cybersecurity and zero trust, as you know, there's a great deal of work underway by the Office of the National Cyber Director, by our federal CISO, Chris Russia, and our OFCIO team. I would probably defer to them to answer the specific cybersecurity and zero trust updates. But I think an important part of being able to find success in government is to, we often talk about meeting our customers where they are. And I think our customers are also our federal deputy secretaries, our, procurement, acquisition, comms and lead shops, our business lines across agencies. And I think when we can connect with them, we can make great progress. Yes.
Right. I think we have time for one more question. Start. Oh yeah, one here, Jody.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jody Leo. I'm the Chief Delivery Officer here, and thank you so much for being here. I had a question, and probably, I'll start. Do you have any inspiring examples you've seen in which agency business processes were changed so that digital transformation could really take hold?
I'll start with one. Can't get too deep in the weeds here, but while I was the executive director of 18F, we had a long-run project with the Department of Justice, and we supported them through the transformation of their civil rights portal, which at one point they were receiving a variety of complaints that weren't necessarily within their jurisdiction. A lot of the instructions were in plain language, which made it confusing and only further added to incomplete submissions and submissions that weren't necessarily appropriate. So we worked with them on revamping their process. There was a great example of a content strategist building rapport with a lawyer to make the content more plain. And in addition to that, also on the back end, using different responses to the questions to route complaints to the appropriate offices. So that's one example I'm aware of, and the design was good too. Not to toot my own horn, I didn't do it, but my team did great. That's the example I have.
I'll add on real quick. I mean, going back to the Office of Personnel Management and Brian's team from the Centers of Excellence at the time. You know, going back to Teddy Roosevelt, he has a famous speech, "The Man in the Arena," right? So we named our conference room space the arena, and we said, "Hey, come on into the arena," right? And so if you read through that speech, it's really inspirational, but it's also about roll up your sleeves. You got to get in. It's hard, right? But if you do the hard work, you can just make great strides, and you can make our country better. And I'm doing an injustice to that speech. I know I am, but so we invited the senior leadership team, the C-suite, into the arena at OPM. And I think it's going back to my education and outreach. It's not enough to just deliver the stuff and ask for the money and talking about your congressional briefings. It's really, you know, showing people, not just telling them, showing them what you're trying to do. We had Brian's team, excellent, actually, Matt Montano, I'm going to put a call out for him, who's now the CIO of National Park Service, I think. But Matt and the team, they just walked our executives around. It was basically like a poster session for those in academia, right? We just had these posters around the room, and we walked them through, hey, this is the mainframe technology. We're getting it out of the Teddy Roosevelt building, and we're getting it to 2 different locations, right? And so we did that with all of the things that we were doing. And I think they were inspired by it. I mean, think about how many meetings, we have a lot of meetings in government. We have a lot of meetings, and you have, you know, 5 minutes to make a pitch at a staff meeting, but this gave us the time to just have face-to-face communication, meet the team members, ask some questions, like, tell me about the mainframe, you know, where is it? Could I go see it? Yeah, sure. Come down to the sub-basement, right? And so I think that, again, investing in things like that is what will get you to the next step of the process and to create the momentum and the trust and the support you need to find success.
So we can easily be up here for 3-4 more hours. As much time as you have, we'll take it. But as we come up on time, and you know, I want to ask you all do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I know you, as I meant, from what I heard from Rohan, you're all involved in your own way, contributing to public service. And you may not see that you're making an impact ultimately, but you are making an impact. So I would say, keep on keeping on, because we need you. And talk to your friends and encourage them to join as well in this, because we really need more capable, smart people working in policy and tackling these complex issues.
I'd follow on with that and say, you know, while the work is hard, build that community. It doesn't just have to be your fellow Navanauts. There's people in federal, nonprofit, state and local that are all on the same train that you're on, and can support you through the challenge. So yeah, I'd say look outward. And I think the last thing that I'd also add is, you know, how can you move the needle a little bit every day? Is there someone that you could teach a new trick and open their eyes to a different way of doing something? I think that's another win, and helps, you know, continue to build community and interest in the same way. So keep on keeping on.
And I guess I would just say the work is here. We need folks to join us. And I think I'm happy to deliver a commitment on behalf of the federal CIO, Claire Martirana. We are here to help you block and tackle. If you come, we are here to help clear the way for you to find success. And I think that's one of the secret sauces of our office, right? I mean, the president believes in delivering a government that works for all Americans. We do too. That's what I've done across my entire career. And so we have a leadership team in place across the administration that will be happy to support, clear the way, update policies and guidance documents. Sometimes some of those things are just, they've been around decades as well. Technology changes fast, as you all know better than most. But sometimes our policies and guidance documents have not kept pace. And so we can take care of that. We need you to help us with the rest.
I want to thank you all so much for joining us here today. Let's give our panel a round of applause, please. All right, that is the final session for our offsite. So thank you all.